In the unforgiving wilderness of the Old West, where danger lurked behind every tree and the howl of wolves echoed through the night, a solitary woman made a choice that would change the course of history. Alone and fearless, she shielded a lost child from the teeth of death, risking everything in a land that demanded toughness and often rewarded cruelty. This was no ordinary act of bravery. It was a spark that would ignite a legend far beyond the borders of their remote homestead. The boy she saved was more than just a lost soul wandering the wilds. He carried with him the hopes of a broken community and the resilience of a land shaped by hardship. As she wrapped her arms around him, protecting him from the relentless threat, she could not yet imagine the path that destiny had carved for them both. Their bond, forged in the shadow of peril, would soon echo across plains and mountains in ways that no one could foresee. This is a story about survival, courage, and an unbreakable bond born in the heart of the wilderness. It's a tale where kindness becomes a weapon stronger than any gun, and where a single act of protection can rally an army. The Old West was a place of lawlessness and struggle, but within its vast, untamed spaces, moments of humanity shone brightest. Moments like this one. Stay with me as we journey through the wild frontier, uncovering how a woman's fearless heart and a boy's destined return reshaped the fate of a land and its people. What started as a desperate act of protection blossomed into a powerful legacy that no wolf, no enemy, could ever undo. Prepare to be captivated by a story where every heartbeat counts, and every choice carries the weight of survival. In this tale of the Old West, you will witness how courage and compassion can carve a path through darkness, turning fear into hope and the hunted into heroes. The story you're about to hear will stay with you long after the last page is turned, because some legends are born not from conquest, but from the fierce protection of what matters most. Starting the development of the script for the theme, she protected a lost child from wolves. That boy came back with an army. Here are parts 1 and 2. These sections are immersive, emotionally charged, and structured to hold audience attention throughout the story, rooted deeply in the spirit and drama of the Old West. The wilderness stretched endlessly, a raw and merciless expanse where survival depended on every instinct and decision. It was in this vast, untamed land that a woman lived on the edge of civilization, hardened by solitude, yet guided by an unyielding sense of compassion. The night air was thick with the scent of pine and the distant cries of wolves, creatures both feared and respected by those who dared to call the frontier home. On one fateful evening, this woman's world was forever changed when she stumbled upon a child, lost and trembling, caught in the merciless grip of the wild. The boy was no ordinary child. He was a symbol of vulnerability amid the harshness that defined the West. His eyes, wide with fear, told stories no words could capture. The stories of a journey marked by abandonment and the raw fight to stay alive. Wolves circled nearby, their howls a chilling reminder that death was never far behind. Yet, against all odds, the woman stepped forward, her presence a beacon of safety in a place where trust was a rare and precious gift. Her fierce protection in the face of such danger would set in motion a chain of events that would resonate far beyond the shadowed forest. In protecting that lost child, she risked everything: her safety, her solitude, even her very life. The frontier was unforgiving to weakness, and yet, in that moment, kindness became her strongest shield. The bond they forged was immediate and profound, a connection born from shared peril and an unspoken promise to survive. The woman's courage wasn't just a stand against the wolves. It was a defiant roar against a world that often crushed the powerless beneath its weight. As days turned to weeks, the wilderness became both a battlefield and a sanctuary. The woman and the boy learned to trust each other, relying on instincts honed by desperation and hope. The lessons of survival were harsh, but necessary. How to read the tracks in the dirt, when to hide and when to run, and above all, how to face fear with unshakable resolve. Each challenge deepened their bond and carved a path toward a destiny neither could yet comprehend. What began as a fight for life would soon grow into a story of unexpected strength and the gathering of forces beyond the wild. The boy's survival was not merely a victory over nature, but a spark that would ignite a movement. From the shadows of that night, a future emerged, one where courage and protection would bring forth an army, changing the fate of the land and its people forever. News traveled slowly in the frontier, carried by wind, whispers, and weary travelers. But the tale of the woman who saved the lost boy from wolves began to weave itself into the fabric of the surrounding settlements. To some, it was a story of bravery. To others, a whisper of hope in a land often marked by fear and division. The boy, once a frightened child of the wilderness, grew stronger under the woman's watchful care, and with each passing day, the bond between them became a symbol of resilience. The woman's farmstead became a refuge, not just for the boy but for those drawn by the story of survival and protection. Strangers arrived from distant trails, families broken by hardship, outlaws seeking redemption, and wanderers hoping for a place to call home. Each visitor added a new thread to the growing tapestry of community, bound together by the courage to protect what was vulnerable and the will to stand against the chaos that defined the West. Among those who came was a grizzled old scout, a man whose eyes had seen every corner of the frontier and whose heart was softened by the woman's unwavering spirit. He recognized in the boy not just a survivor, but a leader in the making, someone destined to rally others who had been lost or cast aside. His arrival brought not only knowledge, but also a network of allies, ready to stand alongside the woman and the boy when the time came to face greater threats. Yet, the shadows of danger were never far away. Rival factions and ruthless enemies saw the gathering strength as a challenge to their power, threatening to tear apart the fragile peace the woman and boy had built. They understood that this was more than a mere shelter. It was a beacon of hope that could inspire rebellion and change. The looming conflict would test every ounce of courage and loyalty, demanding sacrifices few were willing to make. But through it all, the bond between the woman and the boy remained unbreakable. Their shared trials had forged a connection stronger than any threat. Together, they prepared not only to defend their home, but to lead a force that could alter the destiny of the frontier itself. This was no longer just a story of survival. It was the beginning of a legend. As the boy grew, so did his understanding of the land and its unforgiving nature. Every sunrise brought new lessons: how to read the signs left by animals, how to move silently through the dense forest, and how to trust his instincts even when fear whispered lies. The woman's guidance was patient but firm. She taught him not only to survive, but to carry the strength of the wild within him. Together, they became an unstoppable force against the dangers that prowled the frontier. But survival was only the beginning. The boy's spirit burned with a fierce determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The memory of the wolves' cold eyes lingered, reminding him of the fragility of life on this harsh land. His resolve hardened into a promise to become a guardian, not just for himself, but for the people scattered across the wilderness who lived in constant fear of predators, both human and beast. The woman watched with a mixture of pride and quiet awe as the boy transformed before her eyes. What had started as a desperate act of protection blossomed into something greater, a leadership born from compassion and courage. Their bond became a symbol of hope for a fractured land, a beacon to those who had lost their way. Whispers of their story traveled on the wind, reaching ears hungry for inspiration and courage. Amidst the growing tensions of the frontier, enemies began to take notice. Rival groups, threatened by the rising unity the woman and boy inspired, moved in shadows, plotting to crush the fledgling hope before it could ignite a revolution. The stakes grew higher, and the threat more imminent. But the woman and the boy stood unwavering, ready to face whatever darkness awaited, knowing that their fight was for something far bigger than themselves. Together, they began to gather allies, men and women who had suffered under the brutal hand of lawlessness and cruelty. These were souls yearning for a cause worth fighting for a chance to reclaim dignity and safety. The lost child she once saved was no longer alone. He had become a rallying point, the heart of an army rising from the ashes of despair. The assembly of this unexpected army was not born of conquest or greed, but of shared pain and a collective yearning for justice. Men with scars etched deep from past battles, women who had faced heartbreak and loss, all drawn by the boy's story and the woman's unyielding spirit. They arrived quietly at first, seeking shelter and purpose, but their numbers soon swelled into a formidable force that no enemy could ignore. Each person brought a skill, a story, and a reason to fight. The woman's homestead transformed into a strategic haven, its rugged terrain a natural fortress against attacks. The boy, now a young leader, trained them in survival and defense, instilling discipline without stripping away the fierce independence that defined the frontier soul. Together, they became a family forged not by blood, but by shared commitment and trust. The enemies underestimated the power of unity born from compassion. They had grown used to striking fear into isolated souls, but this army was different. They moved with purpose and heart, their strength multiplied by the bond that tied them to one another and to the woman and boy who had sparked their hope. Stories of their courage spread like wildfire, inspiring more to join and shaking the very foundations of the frontier's cruel hierarchy. As the first battle loomed, the air was thick with tension and resolve. The woman and the boy stood side by side, knowing the fight ahead was not just for survival, but for the soul of their land. Their journey from desperation to leadership had prepared them for this moment, the chance to defend what they had built and to prove that even in the wildest of places, kindness could be the fiercest weapon. The wolves of the wilderness had been just the beginning. Now, with an army at their backs and a future to fight for, the woman and the boy faced a battle that would decide the fate of the West itself. The night before the battle was thick with anticipation and quiet prayers. Around the flickering campfires, the faces of the gathered army were etched with determination and hope. Men and women shared stories of loss and dreams of freedom, their voices weaving a tapestry of shared purpose. The boy, now a young man, moved among them with the weight of leadership resting on his shoulders, yet his heart remained anchored in the memory of the woman who saved him, his guardian, his guide. The woman herself stood apart, watching the stars whirl silently overhead. Her thoughts drifted back to that fateful night when she first found the boy, lost and vulnerable among the wolves. The journey since then had been fraught with peril and pain, but also with moments of incredible strength and unbreakable bonds. She knew the fight ahead was more than a clash of weapons. It was a battle for the very soul of the land they loved. As dawn crept over the horizon, casting pale light on the rugged landscape, the army prepared to move. The boy gathered his closest allies, their faces hardened by loss, but softened by hope. They whispered words of encouragement and strategies learned in the wild, ready to face an enemy that underestimated the power of unity and compassion. Each step forward was a declaration that they would no longer live in fear, nor accept cruelty as their fate. The battle that unfolded was fierce and unforgiving. Gunfire echoed through the canyons. The clash of steel rang sharp against the howls of the wild. Yet, amid the chaos, the strength of the army was undeniable. Their courage was fueled not just by the desire to survive, but by the love that had brought them together. They fought with the ferocity of wolves protecting their own, turning fear into a weapon sharper than any blade. When the dust finally settled, victory was theirs. The woman and the boy stood among their people, battered but unbroken. The land they had fought for was theirs to protect, a testament to what can be achieved when kindness and courage lead the way. Their story, born in the shadow of wolves, had become a legend, one that would inspire generations to come. In the aftermath of battle, the woman's homestead blossomed into a sanctuary unlike any other on the frontier. It was a place where scars were tended, stories were shared, and a community was rebuilt from the ashes of conflict. The boy, now a leader forged by fire and compassion, worked tirelessly alongside those he had sworn to protect. Their lives intertwined with the land and each other, creating a new legacy grounded in resilience and hope. The neighboring towns, once isolated and fearful, began to change. Tales of the woman who protected a lost child and the army that rose in his name spread far and wide. They sparked a movement, a quiet revolution against the cruelty and lawlessness that had long held the West in its grip. More came seeking refuge and purpose, drawn by the promise of safety and the power of belonging. But peace in the frontier was fragile. Challenges remained: natural disasters, old rivalries, and the ever-present threat of those who refused to accept change. Yet, the community stood firm, strengthened by their shared history and the unbreakable bonds formed through adversity. They learned that survival was not enough. They sought to build a future where kindness could flourish alongside strength. The woman and the boy, now a man, continued to lead with hearts full of wisdom and courage. Their journey from a desperate night in the wilderness to the helm of a thriving community was a testament to the power of human spirit and connection. They knew their story was just one chapter in the vast history of the West, but it was a chapter written in hope and the fierce determination to protect what truly mattered. As the sun set over the rolling plains, casting a golden glow over the homestead, the woman and the man looked toward the horizon. Their legacy was secure, not just in the land they had saved, but in the lives they had touched. From the darkest night to the brightest dawn, their story would live on, an enduring symbol of courage, compassion, and the unyielding power of protection. With the threat behind them, the community began to thrive in ways few could have imagined. The woman's homestead, once a lonely outpost against the wild, had transformed into a bustling center of hope and resilience. People from all corners of the frontier came seeking refuge, drawn by stories of courage and protection that had spread like wildfire. The boy, now a man shaped by hardship and love, welcomed each newcomer with the same fierce determination that had saved his own life. But thriving came with new challenges. As the community grew, so did the need for order and justice. The boy-turned leader understood that strength was not only measured by arms, but by the ability to unite diverse souls under a common cause. He worked tirelessly to forge bonds between those who had once been strangers, creating a family bound by shared trials and unwavering trust. The woman stood beside him, her wisdom guiding their path through the complexities of leadership and growth. Yet, even in moments of peace, the shadows of the past lingered. Old enemies lurked on the edges, waiting for a chance to strike. The wild was never truly tamed, and the boy's journey had taught him that vigilance was a lifelong necessity. Together, they prepared their people not just to survive, but to defend the fragile peace they had won. Their story was no longer just about protection. It was about stewardship and the responsibility to nurture what had been so hard-won. The bond between the woman and the man remained unbreakable, a testament to the power of connection forged in adversity. Their shared experiences became the foundation of the community's spirit, inspiring songs, stories, and traditions that would endure for generations. In the heart of the frontier, they had built more than a refuge. They had created a legacy of hope. As twilight painted the sky with hues of fire and gold, the woman and the man looked out over the land they had saved. The wolves of the past were silent now, replaced by the chorus of a community reborn. Their journey, born from a single act of protection, had blossomed into a testament of what courage and compassion could achieve in even the wildest of places. The years passed, and the legend of the woman who saved a lost child and the boy who returned with an army became woven into the very fabric of frontier lore. Their story was told and retold around campfires, a beacon for those who sought strength and kindness and courage in the face of fear. It was a reminder that even in the harshest wilderness, the human spirit could shine brightest when guided by love. New generations grew up hearing their tale, inspired to carry forward the values that had saved a land and its people. The farmstead became a symbol not only of survival, but of thriving through unity. Children played in fields once shadowed by danger, and families built homes where only fear had dwelled. The community flourished, a living monument to the power of protection and the transformative nature of compassion. But the frontier was never static. Challenges came in new forms, changing times, shifting alliances, and the relentless push of progress. Yet, the foundations laid by the woman and the man remained firm. Their legacy was not just the land they had defended, but the spirit of resilience they had instilled. It was a spirit that could withstand the tests of time and change, carried forward by those who believed in a better tomorrow. In quiet moments, the woman and the man reflected on their journey, from that terrifying night in the wilderness to the thriving community they now led. Their bond, tested by fire and strengthened by love, was a beacon of hope. They knew their story was part of a larger tapestry, one woven with countless acts of courage and kindness that defined the Old West. Under the vast, endless sky, they stood together, knowing that their greatest battle had not been with wolves or men, but with fear and doubt. And in overcoming those, they had forged a legacy that would echo across generations, a legacy of protection, unity, and the unwavering power of the human heart. The frontier, once a desolate expanse marked by hardship and isolation, was gradually transformed by the ripple effect of one woman's courage and one boy's survival. Their story became more than legend. It was a living, breathing movement that challenged the brutal reality many had resigned themselves to accept. The community they nurtured thrived not only because of the fertile land or strategic defense, but because of the unbreakable bonds forged in shared struggle and unwavering compassion. Each newcomer who arrived carried with them stories of loss and hope, and in the safety of the homestead, they found a chance to rebuild what the wilderness had taken. The boy, now a man shaped by hardship, resilience, and love, led with a quiet strength, knowing that true leadership was measured by the lives lifted, not the battles won. The woman's unwavering faith in humanity and fierce protection had planted seeds that grew into an enduring legacy, proving that even the wildest lands could be tamed by the power of kindness and unity. Yet, the peace they had carved from chaos was fragile and demanded constant vigilance. Old enemies, embittered by defeat and the loss of control, lurked in the shadows, waiting for any sign of weakness to reclaim what they believed was theirs by right. Raids and threats tested the resolve of the community, but the boy and the woman, along with their growing army of loyal followers, faced these challenges head-on. They understood that survival was not merely about defending land or possessions. It was about safeguarding a way of life born from hope, trust, and a fierce determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The battles fought were not just physical, but moral, a constant struggle to uphold the values that had brought them together amidst a world that often celebrated cruelty and selfishness. In the quieter moments, away from the encroaching dangers, the woman and the man found solace in the land they had fought so hard to preserve. Together, they tended to the fields, repaired weather-beaten fences, and shared stories by the fire that connected them to the generations before and those yet to come. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of adversity, was a beacon of hope not only for their community, but for all who dared to believe that kindness could be a force as mighty as any weapon. They had become symbols, not just of survival, but of the transformative power of compassion and courage in a world that so desperately needed it. Their story was carried far beyond the boundaries of the frontier, whispered in saloons, sung in ballads, and remembered in the quiet reverence of those who had witnessed the rise of something extraordinary from the ashes of despair. The boy who had once been lost in the wilderness, protected by a fearless woman, had grown into a leader who inspired an army, not through fear or violence, but through the undeniable strength of hope and unity. Their legacy was a testament to the fact that the greatest battles are won not by conquest, but by the willingness to protect, to believe, and to stand together against the darkness. As the stars shone brightly over the endless plains, the woman and the man stood side by side, their hearts full of gratitude and resolve. They knew that the road ahead would still hold trials and heartbreak, but also triumph and growth. The wolves of the past had been faced and defeated, but their greatest victory was in the lives they had touched and the future they had forged. A future where courage was intertwined with kindness, and where the spirit of the Old West lived on, not in the gunfire, but in the quiet, unyielding power of protection and love. The final chapters of their journey were not marked by grand battles or sweeping victories, but by the steady, unshakable growth of a community that had risen from nothing into something extraordinary. The farmstead, once a solitary refuge, had blossomed into a thriving hub where families were raised, traditions honored, and the harsh lessons of the frontier transformed into wisdom for the future. The woman's fierce protection and the man's steadfast leadership had sown seeds that bore fruit across generations, proving that even the wildest lands could be tamed by unity and compassion. This legacy was etched not only into the earth but into the hearts of all who called this place home, a living testament to the power of one act of kindness to change the course of history. The stories of their courage and resilience became guiding lights for those facing their own battles, whispered across campfires, and carried on the winds that swept through the canyons and valleys. The boy who had once been lost, the woman who had saved him, and the army they built together stood as enduring symbols that the true strength of the West was not in the guns or the gold, but in the unbreakable bonds of loyalty, protection, and love. Their tale challenged the harsh, unforgiving narrative of the frontier and replaced it with one of hope, redemption, and the fierce determination to protect what mattered most. As the community continued to grow and evolve, the woman and the man remained its heart and soul, guiding with wisdom forged in the fires of experience and compassion tempered by the harsh realities of their world. Their story was far from over. It was a living legacy that would inspire countless others to rise, to protect, and to believe in the power of kindness amidst chaos. They understood that their greatest battle was not fought with weapons alone, but in the everyday choices to stand for justice, to protect the vulnerable, and to nurture a future built on hope. Beneath the vast, ever-changing sky of the Old West, their story became a quiet promise to all who came after, that even in the face of darkness, courage and compassion could light the way. The legacy they built was more than a memory. It was a call to action, a challenge to every soul who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. Their journey was a reminder that the smallest acts of protection can ripple through time, shaping destinies and forging futures beyond imagination. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the plains they had fought so hard to save, the woman and the man stood together, guardians not just of land, but of a legacy that would endure for generations. Their story, born from fear and forged in love, was a testament to the enduring power of protection, the strength found in unity, and the unyielding spirit of the Old West. The story we've journeyed through is more than a tale of survival in the harsh wilderness of the Old West. It is a profound reminder that courage and compassion can change the course of history. From a moment a fearless woman protected a lost child from the wolves, a chain of events unfolded that proved even the smallest acts of kindness carry the power to ignite extraordinary change. Their bond, tested by danger and forged in trust, became the foundation of a community that defied darkness and built a legacy of hope. Reflecting on this journey, we see that true strength lies not in dominance or power, but in the unwavering choice to protect and uplift those who are vulnerable. The boy who once wandered alone grew into a leader, not because of might, but because of the love and faith shown to him when all seemed lost. This story challenges us to look beyond fear and judgment, to find the bravery to stand for others, even when the path ahead is uncertain. As you let this story settle in your heart, ask yourself, what can we do in our own lives to be the protector, the guardian, the light in someone's darkest hour? How might a single act of kindness ripple beyond our understanding, shaping futures and inspiring change? The lessons of the Old West are timeless. They remind us that compassion is a courage as fierce as any battle, and that in protecting one another, we find our greatest strength. If this story moved you, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Your voice helps create a community where stories of hope and resilience inspire and empower. And if you want to join us on more journeys through the raw, emotional landscapes of history and humanity, subscribe to the channel. Together, we can explore the stories that remind us who we are and who we can become. Thank you for being part of this journey. Remember, every choice to protect, to care, and to stand with others writes a new chapter in the story of humanity. Stay courageous, stay compassionate, and never underestimate the power of a single act to change everything.